Howdy YouTube, Justin Fuller here, and today I'm outside of a 2021 Honda Accord LX. Now this is your base model, so a lot of you are probably saying, I don't think a base model is really gonna cover what I need. But what if I told you this car has a backup camera? It has Bluetooth, it has an audio touchscreen, it has Apple CarPlay, it has Android Auto, and so much more. Let's hop on in and check it out. So let's talk about what's underneath the hood of this 2021 Honda Accord LX. So I'm gonna pull you on in and let's talk about this. So this car is using a 1.5 liter turboed engine that's connecting out to a CVT transmission. Now, you're looking at approximately 192 horsepower out of this engine, and you're getting approximately 30 in the city and 38 on the highway. But let's talk about what's underneath here that you're kind of working with here. So you see your brake distribution lines running right here, so that's what this is. Coming across, you've got, of course, your oil access right here, and then you've got a dipstick thing right down here. Your windshield wiper fluid is going to be, of course, here. Your air box comes right across. So you can see intake right here. And then I've got, of course, a fuse box here. And then my battery terminal is located right here. So I've got easy access if I ever need to jump my car or jump a friend's. I'll point out that you do have additional space back here. So it's not packed so tightly that you can't run additional lines or anything like that. So if you guys ever run, auxiliary lights, you want to run wires for an amp or anything like that, you do have the space to do it. Now, I want to take a second to do a comparison here. Because this car gets 192 horsepower, I want to throw you up some other base models so you can compare them to. So I'm going to throw that up on the screen so you can see some of the competitors out the market and how they compare. Now, after you've taken a look at that, now I want to talk about the miles per gallon. This car, of course, getting 30 in the city and 38 on the highway is fantastic, but I want to show you what the competitors look like so you can understand, hey, is this car really worth buying? Is it really going to put me on the right spot as far as gas savings and give me that power that I want? So take a look at that and we'll go on to the next thing. All right, guys, so let's do a quick walk around and talk about the exterior features on the car. So I'm going to walk you around this side of the car and kind of point out a couple things. The first will be the wheels. You have a 17-inch alloy wheel here. And if you're wondering about tires, you're running a 225 50/R17 on it. So just in case, and this is coming standard setup with Hanuks. So just be aware of that. Now, as we pop up here, I will point out that your mirrors are body colored and so is your door handles, which a lot of times in base models and a lot of competitors and even in Honda in previous years, these weren't always the case. These would normally be black and these are breakaway, right? The other thing I'll point out is this is a nice pearlized paint, so it is pretty cool, but I will remind you, if you're looking at pearlized paint, it is hard to match up, so if you ever get in a car wreck, be aware of that. It is a hard color to match, so something to consider if you're looking at a white vehicle. Now, as we pop around the back, I'll point out that this car is tinted, and it's been tinted here at this dealership, so that's one of the add-ons they've done to this car. It's probably the only one that they've done, but I want you to be aware that it doesn't come tinted like this from the manufacturer. Now, as far as lighting setup, you do have an LED setup with this vehicle, so the front lights, which I'll get to in a second, and then, of course, the back lights. So I just want to point out that your lights are right there. Of course, you have your Honda emblem, and then your backup camera is going to be located right here just so you can see it. Let's keep wrapping around the side. Up top, I'll point out your antenna. So you have that shark fin antenna. And of course, your gas is right here, which is connected to your door locks, which is kind of cool. And then it is capless, which I'll show you how that works here in a second with a couple things. Now, let's wrap around up to the front of this vehicle and just show you the front fascia so you can get an idea. You do have that LED setup, like I mentioned. You won't find fog lights in this car. You're gonna have to climb trim levels if you want that. But you do have the LED headlights and the daytime running lights. And then as we move across the front, you'll see that you have the nice chrome brow with chrome trim and then the black finish right there additionally. All right, guys, so before we head into the interior of the car, I want to talk to you about safety on this vehicle and just kind of let you know some of the things that come standard on an Accord. So I want to point out a couple things. First off, you do have a backup camera in the vehicle, right? So that's pretty standard across all lines since I think 2013. Now, other things you do have is you have what's called Honda Sensing. Now, I want to point out a couple things here. Up in the glass up here, you'll see kind of a trapezoid cut out, and that's for a camera that it uses. And then it also has radar that's going to be down here in the grill. So you should be aware of that too. Now, what those are for is the first one is collision mitigation braking. So if it's looking like I'm going to rear in another car, it'll give me an audible alert, it'll flash in the dash, and it'll actually start to apply the brakes to help prevent the accident. Now, secondarily, you have road departure mitigation, meaning if I start to drive off the shoulder of the road, it'll give me an audible alert, and it'll actually vibrate to what'll say, hey, wake up, pay attention. Now, on that same plan, using that camera up top, you have lane keep assist. Now, what that camera does is it detects lines out on the road in front of you, the dotted white lines. So if you start to drift to the left or the right and you have this feature on, it'll keep you centered in lane. So you'll actually feel it pull the wheel a little bit to the left or the right. Now, You have all of those features, and then you also have adaptive cruise control, which is a standard cruise control, but what it does is it uses the radar down in the grille and the camera to detect cars out in front. So if it sees them, what it's gonna do is actually be able to keep spacing that you designate between you and the car in front of you. So a really cool feature. Now, other things you have 6 airbags in this car. So you have 2 front airbags, 2 side airbags, and then 2 full curtain airbags running the back of the car, right? So the front and the back. Now, on top of that, you have what's called ACE body structure, which if you're not familiar with that, it's advanced compatibility engineering. Now, what that is it means that it's set up with crinkle zones in the front to help make sure that the engine struts fall, so that the engine will drop if you get in an accident, get pushed under, so it doesn't get pushed in the cabin to hurt people. It's got crinkle zones wrapped all around the frame and the metal. That way it can help protect and push everything out and around the car to protect your passengers, because let's be honest, that's the most important part. It's gonna be your family that's actually living inside of this car, right? So you've got all of that working for you, and then your standard setup stuff, like larger brake lights, backup cameras and different things like that available to you. So know that you have a lot of safety when it comes to this car, and that's how it continuously gets a 5-star rating and overall gets recommended year after year after year. All right, guys, so let's talk about the caboose on this bad boy. What do you say, huh? So let's come on in here. So I wanted to point out, of course, that you can pop the trunk off the keys, right? So you have the ability to control your door locks and then your trunk, and then you can set up your alarm. And then there is actually a key. There's a little switch on the back here. So just take a second to talk about the fob. Let's see if I can do this with one hand here. Check that hand dexterity. Ah, there you go. So you've got a key that'll actually get you in the doors. This is the piece that, like, if I was valeting my car, I could keep all my keys on my key ring, hand this to the valet car, and he could valet the car, right? So just be aware of that you have this, right? You actually do have a key. But let's talk about the trunk space here. So the first thing I want to point out is, of course, I do have carpeted floor mats that come standard on the car. Not every vehicle always comes with those. But in the back here, so you've got a single flip down back here. So it's not like a 60-40 split where you can throw down part of it. It's a full fold down. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for that 60-40, you're going to want to climb trim levels. But to drop that, all you got to do is pull this right here. It unlocks it, and then you can flip it down. Now, additionally, in the back, I do have my spare and all my accessories. So all my accessories are right there, which I'll explain this funnel here in just a second. But let's see if I can get under here and show you where your spare lives. Absolutely. So it's a full diameter spare. And what I mean by that is the full height, just not the full width. But let's take a second to talk about this. Hey ye! Just kidding. I'm not going to go into any kind of weird stuff like that. But let's talk about what this feature is and what it does. So I want to talk to you about the gas, right? So I mentioned earlier that this is connected to the door lock, so I can pop it open if the doors are unlocked. Well, it's capless, right? Which is really cool, because what it means is that I don't have to worry about accidentally not tightening this enough, and then the check engine light comes on. But what it does mean is if I run out of gas, I need a way to hold this open so that I can pour gas into it if I don't have, a regular gas deal, right? So that's where this comes into play, because what it'll do is it'll hold that valve open so that I can pour gas now down into it. So if nothing else, you learned about this today. All right, guys, so before we leave the trunk of this vehicle, I want to talk about a cargo space comparison for you so that you can really understand how this specific car compares to what else is out there on the market. So I'm going to throw that up on the screen so that you can see a trunk comparison as far as your cargo space, so that you can understand where they live and compete, and then we can move on to the next topic. All right, guys, so here we are in the second row of this vehicle, and the first thing I want to point out is I've got quite a bit of leg space. So as a 6-footer, I could easily fit behind myself and have plenty of room in the back of this vehicle. Now, it technically seats 3 in the back, but let's be honest, it's really 2 and a small child, right? It's not gonna be super comfortable. If you had to take a long road trip, 3 adults in the back of this would be absolutely ridiculous. But I wanna talk to you about interior too. So this comes with a cloth interior in this specific vehicle, and you can see that this one is specifically black, and it's kind of a neoprene finish. You've got like a 2-tone material difference here that you can see right there. Now, as far as over here, anywhere where your arms are gonna land, you're gonna have a different cover. So this is like a vinyl fill, which you're gonna find here, and then up on the steering wheel, and of course on the shifter as well. So it's gonna give you some protection on those elbows that might typically rub on stuff like this. Now, you do got some storage back here. You do have 1 flap back here. Oh, you don't get that second flap. You gotta add and climb models. Honda, really? Let's talk about this. Come on, guys, do better. But as far as the interior goes on this car, you can get a black interior, you can get a tan interior or a gray interior, depending on what color exterior car you're getting. So the white typically comes in a tan or the black interior. All right, guys, so before we leave the back seat of this vehicle, I want to talk to you about second row passenger leg space, right? It's going to play a role if you're out there shopping in the market and you want to know, hey, how does it compete against those out there in the market? So on the screen, I'm going to throw up a comparison so that you can see how this vehicle compares to other vehicles out there in the market, so that you get a strong understanding for, hey, is this gonna be adequate for what I need, or is there something else out there that's just killing it as far as leg space goes? So take a look at that and we'll go into the next topic. All right guys, so before we go over the dash layout, I wanna talk to you about front row leg space. So this car has actually got quite a bit of space. So as you can see, I've got all kinds of space down here since I've got my, my steering wheel up. But I just wanted you to understand that as a 6-footer, I've got plenty of space in this car. So if you land in that 6'2", 6'3" category, you should be absolutely fine. But I want you to get that comparison of other vehicles out there in the market compared to this one, right? So I'm gonna throw that up on the screen so that you can see the front row leg comparison, right? So take a look at that and then we'll talk about the dash. All right guys, so as we come across the dash, I'm gonna start you on the left side and just kind of go over all the different features and buttons that you have, right? So we'll touch on a lot of these and explain what they are. So the first thing I want to point out down here is that of course you can access your trunk right there, you can access your hood right there and then your trunk right here. Now moving up a little bit, I have vehicle stability assist, which works with your traction control. So in the event that you go into a skid, it'll help transfer power to whichever wheel is getting better traction in the car. Now, if I press this button right here, it's actually gonna pull up a couple different options. And these are gonna be those Honda sensing options that we talked about earlier, right? So you can see road departure mitigation, which if I drive off the shoulder of the road, it'll give me that audible alert and then it'll actually vibrate the wheel to say, hey, wake up, pay attention. And then below that is my collision mitigation braking system, which as I mentioned, if it's looking like I'm gonna rear in another car out there, first it'll give me an audible alert, then it'll flash in the dash, then it'll actually start to apply the brakes to help prevent the accident. So a couple of those features pull up immediately using this button right down here. Now above that, I can access my trip computer, and then of course I can control the dim and brightness, which as I roll this, you'll see it roll on the screen for me. All right, so on the steering wheel, there's quite a few buttons, which I'm never a huge fan of, but it's very maneuverable and very easy to understand, and they've cut down a little bit on this side. So on this side here, let's talk about this. So the first thing you have is your home button right here, and when you press that home button, you'll see a menu screen come up on there. Now you can see me rolling with my finger. So this is gonna give you several different options. So let's go over some of those options first. So you've got your tachometer, range and fuel. I don't think I need to explain some of these, speed and time. That's just, giving you all kinds of info related to your driving. Audio wise, it's cool that I can jump in here and now I can scroll. So it'll allow me to scroll through all my available options. So I've got, FM, AM, USBs, audio as far as Bluetooth, and then my smartphone connection. You'll notice you don't see a CD player on there because there's no longer CD players in Hondas, right? It's got to have a rear entertainment system to get that now. So just be aware of it. So below that, I can access, of course, my phone if I've connected it via Bluetooth. Then traffic signs, super cool feature, right? I can't believe this comes in a base model at this point. What this does is you're gonna see traffic signs. So up here, it's gonna use that camera. Whenever I pass a speed sign, it will pick it up. So even if I'm in a work zone, it'll pick it up and it'll throw it right there to me. So it'll all know what the speed limit is. So you don't ever have to be that person who has a cop driving behind you from now on wondering, I have no idea what the speed limit is on this road and he's driving behind me. If you got this on, you can absolutely take advantage of using it, right? So that is the traffic sign recognition system. Now, driver support, this is gonna be related to some of those Honda sensing features, which I'll go over here in a second. And then your driver attention monitor. So just depending on how much of the safety features you're using as far as, adaptive cruise control, where I'm not touching my gas and my brake, and the steering controls where it keeps me centered, eventually it's gonna start to alert you if it's noticing you're not responding to the vehicle quite as much as you should. Rear seatbelt. So this is new to 2021. It's gonna throw up a reminder. So if people aren't wearing their seatbelts, it's gonna throw up a warning symbol to let you know in your rear, just to make sure that you're keeping everyone safe inside of your vehicle. Maintenance, it'll give you your oil life, and then from there, when it gets down to 15%, it'll start to alert you audibly, and it'll throw a code on the sign, and you'll see like A right there. It'll say A1 or A2 or B1 or B2, and you could look that up. Honda's been doing it forever, so that way when you go into the dealership, or if you're taking it to like a Meineke, or you're taking it to like a your own lube shop, it'll let you know ahead of time what they should be recommending to you. Now, under that, safety support, so that pulls up those two features we were just talking about, and I can see that they're both on now. And then one more of my warning. So this would be like if the trunk was open or if I don't have my seatbelt on, which I currently don't. Now, the additional features over here are gonna be the plus and the minus for my volume controls, right? Jumping between tracks are my favorite stations, and then my back button if I need to back out of screens, and then my Bluetooth control. So to answer call, hang up call, and voice command. Now this voice command is gonna play a part for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which I'll go over here when we get to the touchscreen. Now on the right side is gonna be some Honda sensing features that we talked about earlier. So if this button is on right here, which you'll see this symbol come on right up there, it looks like a car with, it's basically letting you know that, okay, you've now essentially set up your adaptive cruise control. When I get to speed, press set. From there, I can select the distance it keeps between me and the car in front of me using this. And you'll see these boxes appear here. So the more boxes, the more space it's gonna keep between me and that car in front of me. Meaning if I'm going 65, the guy in front of me slows down to 55, my car will slow down until I get out from behind him, and then it will take me back up to my speed, leaving that designated space between me and whatever's next that I come up on, right? So if you don't want that, you can press and hold this, and it'll take you over to a classic cruise control. Turn it back on, just press and hold again, and it'll take you back to the adaptive cruise control. So you have options. Now, lane keep assist, we mentioned earlier. When I press this, you're gonna see these dotted lines fill up or come on right here. Now, you gotta be on over 45 for the camera to actively read the lines on the road, but these will fill in solid to let you know that it's actively reading. And what that means is that from now on, when it's working, if I drift to the left or the right, it's gonna pick up those lines of the road, and it's actually gonna keep me centered. So if I start to drift a little bit because I get distracted and I start to pull the wheel, it's actually gonna pull me back to keep me centered. Now, if you're someone who does not use your blinkers, you're not gonna like this feature because it's gonna consistently be pulling against you. So one, shame on you for not using your blinkers. Don't be that guy. And two, just be aware of it. Now, we know where the blinkers are. We know where the auto on-off headlights are now, since I just showed you those. And then your windshield wipers are over here, and they are intermittent, so I can control the speed. Now, up here in the dash, I'll just point out a couple things. Your temperature, you've got this, this digital display right here. I can also get I love that they've done this now. I can get my speed, whether I want it analog or digitally displayed to me. So I love that you have those options. And then my fuel gauge is over here on the right side, right? So other than that, you do have a push button start. It is not a remote start. You're gonna wanna climb trim levels for that, which while we're talking about that, why don't I take a second and just throw, hey, if I wanna go from the LX and I wanna climb up to the sport model, Justin, what am I gonna get and how much extra is it gonna cost me? So I'm gonna throw that up on the screen so that you can see, hey, if you wanna move up a model, it's gonna cost you X amount of dollars, and you're gonna get this list of items that you can see over here on the side of me. So take a look at that. That way you can realize, hey, is the LX really the vehicle that works for me for the price point that I'm at? Or do I really wanna spend, I think it's roughly about $2 grand more and climb up to that next model. All right, guys, so before we go over the touchscreen, I just wanna touch on some of this general kind of normal use stuff, right? So your AC controls is dual climate controlled, meaning that I can control it separate on one side from the other, which is always cool. Down in here, you can see that I have not only 2 USBs, but also a power outlet, and then I have an additional power outlet that lives inside of the center console. Now up here on the shifter, obviously it lights up LEDs as I go through, so low, your sport mode, drive, neutral, reverse, and then park. As far as your backup camera, I wanna show you that real quick here too. You got a nice big display here, so you have an 8-inch display screen, just so you know what you got going on here. I got a wide angle view here, standard backup camera right here, and then I've got one aimed straight down, so if I'm backing up to another car, a bush, a garage, parking garages are great for this, because that way I can tell where that wall is that I'm typically backing up to. So know that you have these cameras to take advantage of. It's a standard feature inside of this vehicle. Now, some additional buttons that a lot of people never seem to know much about is the econ button first. When I hit that, you'll see a green leaf up here, right up here. What it's gonna do is improve the gas mileage of the car. So the gas mileage is 30 in the city and 38 on the highway, but you're gonna give up some of that power off the accelerator, and your AC unit is gonna blow quite a start. So it dampens some of the systems that you use to help improve gas mileage. Now below that, the car now has idle stop start on it, which I'm gonna be real honest, I'm not a fan of this feature. When it is on, which it's always on unless you press it to turn it off, what it's gonna do is if you come to a stop and you're sitting at a stoplight, it can turn off the engine but allow the electronics in the vehicle to continue to run, which in theory is good, but a lot of times it has lag that I find. So when I go to gas it and take off, it's one of those things that's kind of bothersome. Now, you can turn it off, but every time you start the car, you're gonna have to press this button to turn it off every single time. So just be aware of that if you're using this. Your parking brake here is electronic, so lift up to set it and the LED will come on. To release it, press down. Now, brake hold is a really cool feature, so I'm gonna throw my seatbelt on because you have to wear your seatbelt to use this feature. So let me put that on and then explain how this works. So if I put the car in drive, and I turn the brake hold button on. Now you're gonna see brake hold appear on, and then it's gonna say brake hold, and then it's gonna say hold, right? So now it is now in drive, and you can see that I am not touching the pedals over here, and the car's not moving. So if I give it a little bit of gas, it'll release, we'll start to move forward, and then when we come to a complete stop again, the brake hold button comes on, and it's now in drive still, and it'll hold. So this is great for like stop and go traffic, or if you're in a bank teller line, or if you're in like a fast food line, stuff like that. That's the brake hold button. All right, guys, so let's talk about the touchscreen inside of this car. So I'm on the home button, right, and I've got a couple different menus that I can look through as far as all my different options available to me. The first being my phone, which, by the way, you can rearrange all this. If you press and hold, it'll actually allow you to move stuff around. So just be aware of that. At that point, I can then start dropping stuff in or add and remove things. So just something to be aware of. But the first thing I'll start off is on the phone here. So if you've never connected up your phone via Bluetooth, hit connect phone, hit connect new device. It'll prompt you to turn on your Bluetooth and you can go from there. If you want to add second, third, fourth, up to 6 devices, go into settings. From here, you can go to connections. Once you're into connections, go to Bluetooth. Same thing, you walk through the same prompts. And this way you can connect up additional, phones to your vehicle. Now, next you have your trip computer. So if I want to access that, I absolutely can. It'll show me current, previous trips, all that kind of information that you can get on the dash display. FM, quickly, I'm just going to go through this and just remind you that this is what it looks like. Very easy to seek, tune, scan, do all these normal things, right? So not very hard to use, and then your volume controls over here. Bluetooth audio is exactly what you think it was. Connect up via Bluetooth, and then you can, listen to off of your device. Settings, under settings, there's only a couple things that I'll really show you here. As you scroll around, if you go to vehicle, this is where you can get to like your door locks, your window controls, stuff like that. But under door and window, auto door lock. So this is just the default settings. Right now, it's set up when you hit 10 miles an hour, it'll automatically lock the doors of the car. You can change that. So just be aware of that. And then unlock mode, right? So when you open the driver's side door, it then unlocks the remaining doors of the car. And you can change that as well here. Because I know sometimes it takes the driver a little bit longer to get all their stuff together to get out than the passenger. So I like to change this one usually. So just know that you have those available to you amongst other features that you can play with in here. Jumping back out of that though, SMS text function will read text aloud to you. You'll also have that access to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which I'll go over here in just a second. And then of course you have the USBs that we talked about. So 1 and 2, you can plug a thumb drive in if you want to listen to additional music. You have AM. Car does have a compass. I get asked about that a lot on some other vehicles, and this car does come with one, so it's kind of cool that it does. System updates, and then accessing like a clock and wallpaper, which you can change this wallpaper back here if you want. You can customize and set it to your own if you want to plug in a USB that has JPEGs or PNG files on it. So not hard to do. You can come in here, add a new wallpaper, and then it's going to search if you have something. So very easy to do. So you can tell that the touchscreen's actually quite easy to use. The last one is Honda Link. For the base model, it's not really going to do much other than when you connect up your phone via Bluetooth, it's going to prompt you, and it's going to say, would you like to enable Honda Link? And it's going to give you a definition of what it's talking about. And what it means is that in the event that you get in an accident, the airbags deploy, Honda can call you. If you don't answer, they can then call 911 and let them know the last location of the car, the year, make, the model, the color, and the VIN to help find you quicker. 100% free. Take advantage of it. Runs a lifetime of the vehicle, right? So let's talk about Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. All right, guys, so let's talk about Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So I'm an Android-based user because I use a Google Pixel, but doesn't matter. They're all going to work similarly, right? The exception is if you're an Android-based user, you are going to need to download the Android Auto app. Now, if you're an Apple-based user, just plug in your phone and then you can go from there. Now, if you're wondering about the wireless connectivity through Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you're going to need to be on an EXL or Touring model. In the base model, you're going to need to use the wire, right? There are adapters out there, though, I know that exist. So if you want to go wireless, you can buy something to make it wireless. But let's hop on in and show you some things. So from the home screen here, there's a lot of different apps you have available to you, whether it be mapping systems, audio-wise, calendars, messengers, all kinds of things. So I use Google Maps, so that's the commonly one I have here, but I also have access to Waze additionally too. If you're an Apple-based user, you have Apple Maps available to you, along with Google Maps and Waze too, right? If you're a podcast user, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but you could absolutely throw on some of the apps out here, along with Spotify, Pandora, and several YouTube Music and a lot of others. So I'm gonna take a second to pause and just throw 15 of the most popularly used apps for Apple CarPlay and Android up on the screen. So take a look at those so that you can get a kind of an understanding for what all additionally you have available to you. And there's always new apps that are becoming compatible, so just be aware of that. Now that we've touched on that, I just want to show you quickly that, it's very easy. I could jump in, it'll pull things up and kind of start loading routes and doing all kinds of stuff for me. So very easy to use as far as jumping through these different apps. So it just gives me a lot of connectivity through my phone and my car, which allows me to play music, listen to things, and just do it all without having to pick up my phone and even touch it, which is so helpful. And you can still see if I have directions running, it'll show them down here congruently while I have my music pulled up. So really cool features that it does this with split screen and different things like that. So just something to be aware of. And you can even customize this. You can change different things on here. So I could come over to I could come over here to the settings if I want to change the background or whatever it may be, and play with different things. So know that you have that available to you, that even here you can have some fun and choose wallpapers and different things here. So I could come in here and say, yeah, give me the pleated look, right? If that's what makes life better for me, then I could go with that, right? So know that you have a lot of options available to you, and it's just going to give you that connectivity. And to get that in a base model vehicle is just a sweet feature, adding to the price point that exists in this car. All right, guys, so there you have it. That is the 2021 Honda Accord LX, aka your base model vehicle. So I hope that you enjoyed it. Now, I want to review over some different things. So I want to start at the very back of the car and talk about that cargo space. So I'm going to throw up that comparison again so you can see how this car compares to the other vehicles out there in the market. Now, after you've taken a look at that trunk or cargo space, I should say, we're going to go into the second row. So I want to talk about that second row legroom that you have available to you. So I'm going to throw that comparison up on the screen so that you can see how this car compares to those other vehicles out there in the market. And then lastly, I'm going to come up in the front row and show you that front row legroom comparison so you can understand, hey, if I was the driver or the passenger, am I going to have a good amount of space to work with? Now, after you've seen all of those comparisons, I want to go to the very front of the car and talk about performance. So I'm going to throw up that horsepower comparison up on the screen so that you can see how it competes against other vehicles out there in the market as far as power goes. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the miles per gallon. Of course, it gets 30 in the city and 30 out on the highway. And then I'm going to throw that comparison up so you can see how it competes in the miles per gallon category as far as your fuel consumption, right? So now that we've looked at all those comparisons very quickly, again, to kind of review over the car, let's just talk about this car. As is a 2021 model, I love that it now offers Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in the base model. It's now a touchscreen up here. It used to just be kind of a screen that looked like one, but wasn't really one, so it kind of lacked in those features. I love that Honda Sensing is a standard feature in a base model vehicle, having that collision mitigation braking, that road departure mitigation, all these different safety features that, hey, I would love to have, but sometimes you just can't afford, right? I can't afford a $30,000 car if I have 3 kids, and that's a lot of mouths to feed, and sometimes you just don't make the money. Knowing that you can get a base model car that starts at, I believe, 26 and change is just a fantastic thing to be, one less thing to worry about, right? I know that I can put my kids in a safe car, and if at some point I plan to hand this car down to them, how fabulous is it that it has a backup camera? It has all these different safety features. They can plug their phone and they can use all this different technology to take advantage of and keep them safe driving down the road. So, other than that, I'd like to ask you for a couple favors. One, press the like button. It makes my heart so warm inside, and it just makes me happy to know that you're out there watching, and hopefully you like the way I present this content. 2, leave a comment. Now, related to that, let me know what you think about content, right? Do you think I missed something? Is there something I wish I would have touched on? Things like that. And then secondarily, what do you want to see next? I hardly ever ask this, but leave a comment down in there and let me know what video you'd like to see next. If there's a specific car or a tips and tricks video or something specific, put it down in the comment section. Let me know so I can make that video for you guys. And then lastly, subscribe to the channel, man. Let me tell you about the next time a Honda video comes out. Let me tell you about it. Hit that notification bell and you'll absolutely know when it comes out. So let me do all those things for you. Other than that, I can't think of anything else to add to that. So all I want to say is thanks for watching. I appreciate you checking in, and later!